Welcome to a new season of Decision Makers, our frequent conversations with policymakers, prognosticators, and experts offering us the latest insights and perspectives on a wide range of issues. This session, we have a conversation with Charles Debow III. He is president and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. More information on nationalbcc.org. It's a multi-chapter nonprofit and nonpartisan Black business empowerment organization. It's also spread throughout the Black international diaspora. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Debow. Real good to have you.
What an honor and a pleasure to join you and to really be in such a comfortable environment where we get a chance to just kind of talk, to converse. As you mentioned, my name is Charles Debow. I am the President and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was formulated as a federation of Black Chambers of Commerce. We are, in fact, the first Federation for Black Chambers of Commerce. We are enjoying our 32nd year. We were founded by my sister and her husband, who's Harry and Kay Debow Alford, and they started in a humble environment as working in state procurement in the state of Indiana. And through those experiences, eventually evolved into the need for a Chamber of Commerce. So the prototype for it became out of a entity called the Hoosier Black Chamber in Indianapolis, Indiana, 32 years ago. The success that they had with taking an insider genesis of beginning, that the goals originally were to increase diversity contracting within the state, and looking at what were the problems and the challenges and then addressing those. But it started to work so well that the old school or the traditional contractors that had been essentially enjoying 100% of the business, now we're down to maybe 90% or 95%. And, usually you see with these guidelines and set-asides and these goals that they might be up as much as 12%, but in actuality, they were doing less than 0.5% or 0.1% or any of it. They were really not even close to what the goals and objectives were. So as that happened, there was a lot of friction, and it did become political. And this was under, at the time, Governor Evan Bayh. And so they went through a process in an environment such as Indiana, where there really hadn't been a proliferation of collaboration and integration with Black business as part of the economic landscape. So eventually it grew into a thing where, hey, you guys started this chamber. People from other states were coming in because they were saying, like, for example, we don't have a contractor that's capable of building something as large as, for example, a wing on the airport. And so they were able to advocate and get in the room and get in this case, this came out under a former presidential administration, where just to get on the playing field, to be able to compete, to be judged on the merits of the quality and capacity of the business itself. So when Black businesses started working together, the capacity and the potential went up. So that eventually gave birth to say, hey, you guys got to move to DC. We need to take this to the federal level. And that's essentially when the National Black Chamber of Commerce was given birth in Washington, DC. And over those years, we've evolved from a organization that was largely principled and focused on the needs of essentially government contracting, because the gains were so strong and so big, and the number of companies that were there and qualified but were not having successes. So there was training, there was advocacy, there was a lot of communication and different things going on. So that's really how our federation started to take shape and form, but it was really on a opt-in kind of disposition, meaning that, I need help, I'm in it, I understand what's going on, where do I go? And it wasn't so much that hey, all y'all in Chicago or Detroit, New York, Atlanta, wherever it be, come and listen to us. No, the train was moving, but we had room for everybody to jump on. And that's kind of like what started happening. And so the uh, amount of revenues and contracting and in the awards started to go up, and it went well. And so over that time, we can go into all the details about how it blossomed and flourished, and even to today, where that term minority became such prestigious and priority area, and it was largely valued based upon the level of commerce activity that was going on. There was a time where the Beltway in Washington, D.C., which is actually 495, housed or was domiciled by over 80% of the Black government contractors, where it was not unusual for the average company to be doing over $20 million. And there were a number that were doing much more than that. And so there was this period where things were kind of going as intended, but never, hardly ever that we're aware of were the actual goals and guidelines being met. We're still doing well with far less of a percentage of the participation in that. So during this evolving period, we started to move both up and down that economic vertical. Economic vertical meaning that if we're dealing with government contractors, and so what about the subcontractors? Or what about people that are just starting a business? Or what about the issues and challenges and things going on with the employees? What about the training, the education? What about the actual contracting officers themselves? What about the different various government agencies that are saying, hey, we don't think it's a racial problem, but it's easy for the media, the public at large, to say it's racism. But as you start to peel back and look at the details of it, it was quite encumbersome in terms of the requirements, the procedures, the policies, all these different things that you needed to understand. And the more, for all reasons, but the more they wanted to manage or control, it's kind of like almost when academics environments started grading on the curve or not, and what's an A or what's not, or what's going. So the rules in the playing field change. The rules of the game changed. And so you have to kind of be up to speed on it and understand how it works. And then somebody's got to be there to kind of say, wait a minute, who's refereeing this thing, because you're not really following the rules. You guys are doing what you want. And so there's a number of different things that happen. So in that, we kind of expanded out on our vision, our purpose, and our services and resources. Along the same time, unbeknownst to us, other economies, other cultural entities, such as foreign governments, and particularly other countries, were paying attention to this economic model, because the premise that the United States economy was built on inclusive activities from a commercial and industrial aspect, that the uh, when people started moving south and moving into the industrial areas, that's when, like, for example, in GM or some of the steel mills and other things like that, that after World War II, when we started to really turn on our economy, it needed more workers, it needed more people, and they were having gainful jobs, and they were becoming more. And at some point, somebody said, hey, I can do more if I start my own company and make this thing for you. And they built companies. So a lot of that could be measured, and we can go back historically and look at the supplier relationship in large industries such as the automobile industry, and the successes and things that were happening from that. So as we got to that, we started looking at offering resources and services more to fit the whole ecosystem, and not necessarily just the tip of the spear, where that was going. So that story goes on and on, but the foreign interests came to where, for example, the president of, I think it was Kenya was one of the ones I was involved with. President
Right.
Kenya came for meetings, and they were having meetings at the White House, but he brought this large delegation with him that had um, what we would call small businesses, but for them, they were significant businesses. But they really only wanted the people that are Fortune.
Is that how you formed those different chapters and
Yeah,
various
this
black
is how
diaspora
the
countries
door
like
opened and the dialogue began. They came
yeah,
to us and said, "Hey, what can you do for our small businesses?
yeah.
And would you please talk to them and what would we have?" And that's when it kind of began. It began, and we talked to them and we started to learn. But they wanted to learn about how we had things like mentor protege programs, subcontracting development.
Mm.
How did it work with their governments in terms of government contracting? And how do you balance out so you get some reciprocal on your spend and you get some residual value for growing your economics? It's still an ongoing thing, but that's how we ended up becoming partners with, for example, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, even to the degree that under Colin Powell, we were asked to go to Jamaica and work with the 12 chambers there. And all this was really to convey and exchange programming and ideology and hardcore best practices on how do we organize our economy based on entrepreneurism. Our mission is to economically empower through entrepreneurial pursuits throughout the diaspora. It doesn't matter where you are, especially if you're having the same issues and the same challenges and the same problems. And this has gone all the way up until maybe just a few years ago. We were at an annual conference that we were co-hosting in Peoria, Illinois, with our Illinois Black Chamber. And we get a call that there's some folks at the airport, which is a smaller town, smaller airport, and they wanted to know if there's any way we could help them get from the airport to the conference. And we didn't know anything about it, wasn't expecting it. It turned out these were some gentlemen came all the way from New Delhi, India, to want to say they wanted to meet us and wanted to be with us. And they thought we were in Washington, went to Washington, but found out we're away at this conference, and they came there. And that's how determined and focused they were. And that's when we really were taken aback to find out that the struggle of Black business, of Black people, from whether it be the civil rights, or social justice, meeting economic development, economic empowerment. That's what they came to. And they said they had been following Martin Luther King because he had come to India, I think it was in the 50s,
Right.
and had given them some principles and things that they really aspired and embraced, and they wanted to take it to the next level. So that's kind of like where the cultural global element really kind of took flight. I mean, it's been going on for years, many years, but now when we're looking at it, we're saying, God has a hand in all this as the global economic development issue and topic and conversation. Then what we once called were third world countries. Then they kind of went into emerging economies to now they are it. China has moved ahead and said, no, you guys can go ahead and debate it and put racial issues or cultural issues and things. We're going right in and we're going to offer these people all the money we can and just take over control. So on the surface and the headline, the media aspect of it, that's what you look at. But then when you come up now and you see, oh, okay, here's these new leaders, these young leaders that finally, after generations, are saying they're putting their people first. They're putting their natural resources. They're collateralizing the assets that they have to understand how can we have some of the most fertile ground in the world, but our people are starving, or we don't have potable water, or we don't have highways and roads. And, when you look in the movie Black Panther and you see the concept of Wakanda, that's really real in terms of ideology, in terms of what's happening and where we're going. So society and the rest of the world, regardless of what kind of cylinder or tunnel vision that we're being fed, we've had to say, do your own homework, facilitate and create your own beliefs, and pull out. We went back and we pulled it out and found out what Marcus Garvey was talking about. or W.B. Du Bois or Booker T. Washington or any of these leaders, Haile Selassie, all these people or whatever, we're all human. So it is human nature for repetition of history and challenges and things we're going through. So that kind of brings us up to where we are today
Yeah.
in a real general sense.
And I'm wondering too, that brings us to priorities in this new year in 2025, especially in the context of this new administration, like how you adapt to that new business environment and uncertain political public policy environment with the new administration. Have you had a chance to assess that or think about that?
It it the answer is yes, but it isn't a matter of, did you have a chance? It's like whether you're out there or vicariously living through what images and things and what you're hearing, what we hear back from our constituency about getting a call and saying, hey, from a sponsor and saying, yeah, it's been nice doing business with you, but we're not going to support you anymore. When a chamber gets a call like that, they go, well, what's going on? What's happening? So of course they look for an answer and a solution. So what happens is that you're always paying attention. You're always listening. When somebody gets a contract or somebody doesn't get a contract, or when you're saying a new law was passed or a new position, or even go back to when Juneteenth was made a holiday. Well, at the same time, we were being given a holiday and another banking day has been taken away from us. There were other bills and other legislation and other things going on that, look here while other things are going on. So that's part of the reality and the hindsight of it as to what you're paying attention to. So to answer your question, yes. And part of it is that we're not you can't survive by sticking your head in the sand. You've got to be proactive. And right now, more than ever, there's going to be some winners and there's going to be losers. There's going to be people that are no longer in the game, and the ones that are the ones that are active and they're open-minded enough to go listen, do some due diligence, and hear and adjust with it. One of the things we're doing that just kind of calm nerves, if you will, because there was embedding in a political philosophy or a way. And then, you got to kind of go back and you got that left side of your brain, the right side of the brain, say, yeah, I hear and they want me to do this and they want me to believe that. But in actuality, you got to look in the mirror and say, is anything better for me?
Mm-hmm.
What did I get from that? Or what are we getting from it? Or what is life like here? And we're still seeing all these other things going on in where you live, in your community, all these other issues and problems. And are we dependent upon somebody else to do something about it? Or what can we do ourselves? And you kind of start getting into you evolve into a thing where, can we do business with each other? And then all of a sudden you get this call and it may be coming from another country and they're saying, hey, can you help me out? And you're saying, well, I don't know. Can we? Because we need help too. And they say, well, yeah, but you guys know how to do it. You've got people that have built roads before, built ports, bridges, even nuclear facilities, for that matter. Our people, meaning that the working class of America, regardless of ethnicity, we're the ones who've done the work. We also have the knowledge and we have the experience of it. And it's people or contractors or other people making those decisions as to who gets in and what opportunity. So when we started working together and started having direct dialogues, your disposition has a heightened belief that something could happen. So if without being going into too many different things at one time, we're preaching and espousing by example, by leadership, on doing business with each other. In the process of doing that, the federal government's taking note and saying, hey, you know what, that's not a bad idea because we're trying to reach these people too. So there's a philosophy, let's say right now, on the American marketplace has to continue to grow and thrive. And it's a lot of it has been proliferated from the average person going on the internet and clicking on something, and whether you're going to buy it or whether you're going to sell to it or whatever, you're no longer worried about a geographical variance. When a company like Amazon comes on and they're selling you a good and can get it to you in a day or two, you're not even worried about do they have to ship it from China or how it comes about.
What's coming to mind to that, or that brings to mind, different critical industries that Black businesses can venture into or are venturing into, and can grow with. What do you think those are? So, you had mentioned a few industries already over the course of this conversation. What do you think those main industries are right now?
My hesitancy is I don't think there's a limit. I don't think there's any industry that you can't get into.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you could throw one at me, and I'm sure I could think of something right away, right now. A lot of this AI technology is coming out of accelerators and incubators with diverse people. Black folks are behind some of this stuff in there and creating the technology, cybersecurity. But if we go very much back to the basics, probably the number one undervalued, if you want to call it a stock, an area for investment and development, is going to be food. Agriculture is probably going to be one of the biggest areas, but yet you could go to the grocery right now and try to figure out, why can't I get, I'm from Indiana. So we grew up on having some of the best corn on the cob that you can imagine. But now I'm living in on the East Coast, and I'm like saying, man, where are they getting this from? Or the fruit, you go back and look at it and you see it's coming from South America or whatever. So the farmers are they're underutilized. Or how are they being utilized? And is it all about price point and these various things? So on the other hand, you got all this arable land in Africa. I mean, you got it in Colombia, South America, you got it in the Caribbean, you got it everywhere. And people are saying, man, we just need a little help on a customer. And then we need the technology on how to, what kind of seed should we be planting? How do we use organic fertilizer and other things to come out with the type of product or quality of the product? Then we need processing. Then we need distribution. Then we need to do it. So it's an ecosystem. It's an eco model, and you basically are picking one engine that you can develop and get into it. So there are people in all these areas, and many of them have quality. They have a viable solution or product, and all we really do is looking at is connecting the dots, if you will, on the utility. So you start with the dirt, and we're talking about agriculture. If you're talking about manufacturing, then you're talking about what parts do you need. I mean, we had a Black company that was with us on a trade mission that we did with the federal government. I'll even go so far as to say it was led by the former Undersecretary of MBDA, Donald Craven. So I was happy to be there. But while we were there, I met a African American. He was African and American that was making chips, computer chips. And we had no idea, but you need 7 essential rare earth minerals to make a chip. The name's slipping what they're actually called, but it's the same thing of why is China trying to take, I think it's Taiwan now, or this issue. They're going, they're one of the biggest chip makers in the world. We've got a big plant that we're developing. Anyway, this guy was there and he was doing it, and he became the prettiest girl at the dance, if you will, that everybody was courting him. And by those kinds of standards, I think he was looking for like $100 million or something like that to build his plant and to get everything else. Kenya wanted it there, and they were trying to do it, but they needed the financing. So we were involved in the conversation of trying to help facilitate it. I think to this day, he probably did get his thing going, his company started, but he wasn't just there. We had another gentleman who actually did get a contract I think, if I could dare say, it's probably about 25, 30 million with the postal system of Kenya. And this was another, he was African, but he lived and moved to America. And they have this thing called the last mile. The last mile is, we can get a product to you. So take a company like Amazon. They're selling all over the world, shipping and having to deliver. When you get to places that don't have addresses, they have to kind of like get it to the general area and say, you got to go here or there to pick your package up because you don't have any addresses, you don't have name. This gentleman had figured out a way to come up with those addresses. It was the last mile. It's a
Wow.
huge thing in emerging economies.
Wow.
And so we're meeting companies that are coming up with solutions that open the gateway to billions of dollars of commerce, as well as the utility of those people in rural areas. I mean, just think about it for a second. You live in a village. Well, we say that over here, but you get there and you find out it's 800,000 people in a rural area in Africa that that have modern structure. They're not living in huts or anything like that, but they didn't have the time and energy for copper wire to come in and connect their phones up. But then the proliferation of cell phone technology, that you got, everybody's got a phone. And now with the evolution of the phone and the communication, and things started to pick up and to move quicker. They had a thing come up for scaling of economies with a digital form of money, and it's called the M-Pesa. And they were allowing you to go to work, get paid in M-Pesa, or in this case, have a roadside stand selling fruit, vegetables, whatever. A lot of women got their baby strapped on their back, but they're out there on a roadside stand. Somebody else over here is saying, well, I only need a couple papayas and some plantain and this and that for today's meal, but I got few dollars here or shillings or whatever the currency is, and we do it. So the M-Pesa allowed them to kind of have a bartering system way in it, where you got paid in M-Pesa and you could have it on your phone and you could use it to pay your utility bill. You could use it for cab fare. You could use it to buy some things that you need. And then we saw in this was in South America, particularly in Central America, actually in Colombia. I was there once and I had a headache. And the people were telling me, just go over here to the pharmacy and you can just get you a few aspirin. And so you don't have to buy the whole bottle. I was like, what? So what they were doing, they were breaking it up. So for example, cigarettes, you could buy 3 or 4 cigarettes. You could buy 5 or 6 aspirin. You could buy, they were breaking it up, but it allowed for the dollar, for commerce to move. It wasn't just shutting people out and ignoring them as much as we were bending to accommodate you. So that's kind of like what's going on with the world. And and if you ever deal with something like building to scale, it's like you and I get together and we can't and we give our message out. Let's say you've got 10,000, 12,000 listeners or something. You just turned and communicated, educated, gave them, activated them. We do the same thing here, and we give the message and we tell. So there's other chambers of commerce, there's other associations and organizations, and there's businesses direct as well as within. Then you go and you say, okay, here's just last month, I got a call from people in Ecuador to say, hey, can you come down here? We need to start a chamber. We need to figure out some stuff. And one of the people that were calling me was a famous world-class soccer player who wanted to do something for his people, but didn't know how to do it and what to do and all that. So they just had me come down and talk to him and give him some ideas and tell him a little bit more about what I'm calling is the nationalization of global economic development. What is that? What are we really talking about? We're talking about, oh yeah, there's all this institutional and industrial investment in these companies, but we're not seeing the results of we should be seeing by having jobs, by having our people rise and raise from it. Well, that's because there was a gap between how you nationalize that investment. In other words, they weren't using local content. They weren't hiring local people. And why? Because they didn't have the capacity. They didn't have the training. They didn't know how to do it. We had a major Fortune 10 type company that is multinational, and they have a plant in another country. And they were saying, how do we go about getting local suppliers in? Because we're not going to train them. And we're like, thought you'd never ask. We got the same folks here that are supplying you here that know your standards and know your vendor codes and know how to do all blah, blah, blah. And we just send them and have them partner in reverse, meaning that the local person is the prime contractor, but the person with the expertise and the partnership and the mentor protege relationship is driven but maintained by the local person. So these are, they may sound complex, but they're really simple and already existing business models that just weren't being implemented or adhered to.
We talk about business models, and you talked about quite a few industries. You talk about that Black businesses can venture into, that are already venturing into AI, cybersecurity. The most undervalued, you were saying, was probably food, geo proximity, manufacturing, chip making, telecommunications. What about the growing clean energy, green economy, also resilience and sustainability economy? Didn't hear much about that. And I wonder, I'm not hearing Black business owners, I'm not hearing the Black community, Black policymakers talk about that, even though we're facing all these challenges with climate change. Black communities are hit the hardest, most disproportionately by those changes. You can't live without air, can't grow food without soil. You can't exist without a planet, right? And so, but there's big growth potential there. What's holding Black businesses back from getting into those marketplaces?
I think we can say the same thing as hold us all back all across the board.
Okay.
Your the membership card to the club is elusive. And who's getting what contract and how. This is one. Let me give you an example. You can Google. There's a sister, dynamic, beautiful, but intelligent Black woman out of Detroit. She's probably the leading EV industry manufacturer for electric related things. So one of the issues with electric vehicles is getting them charged up. And so there was all this money with this need, this huge demand, that as pressure was put on to manufacture these electric vehicles and to start utilizing this stuff, the problem was, all right, now where are we going to get it charged up? How do we go about doing it? Right. This lady had one of the first or the biggest companies that received the award for this contract, but she didn't get any other type of support for the implement. And that's where it's stalled or had problems on. They kind of talk the talk and they do the photo ops and they get the thing going, but the whole strategy, the logistics of implement and what are the steps to implement. So we're coining and really promoting a phrase and a concept on deal flow. You can have an idea, but what is the end deal? With all this technology and everything now, you're going to hear and see much more from the federal government. Everything's on performance indicators, KPIs, data analysis. How many people did you reach? What were they offered? What were their challenges? Or what? And now with AI going, they eat that up like in the smallest elements of dissecting, analyzing every element of that it's moving very fast. So when you ask about what's stopping or what's holding, a lot of it is the ability, again, I will say, for us to just do business with ourselves. Meaning that if we don't have to be outside that country club banging on, will you let me in? Mother, may I? Will you finance me? Will you give me permission? Can I go and do this? Then of course, it isn't necessarily logical. It becomes more like who's in position, who's got the gatekeeper, if you will, who's controlling who gets in. Now, on the other hand, there are those that went on and did it and found a way, and it had little to do with the fact of the color of their skin or who they were, and they went and got some contracts. They might have been in another country, but all of a sudden now they're the hot ticket. So we have another a company, really bright guys that went through a black supplier development program, and they make the so here's another caveat to it. So you talk about understanding and learning about opportunities on. Well, little do you know from the general public, but that if you build a shopping center, if you build a office center or an apartment building, you're required by law to have so many electrical charging stations there. Those things can range, I believe, and don't hold me on this. I believe it's like 50, 75,000, maybe 150,000 to put one of those charging stations in. But they might need 500,000 of them, or a large property owner, or a municipality for offering the permits to build and all that kind of stuff. They have all these things in there. Well, these guys came out with an efficient unit that is easy and quick to get up. They manage it. They designed it. They have the technology. There's a lot of technology involved with battery charging. Not to mention, again, we're going to talk the ecosystem of you need lithium for batteries to manufacture, and then you've got to charge them. And so there's so much of this kind of stuff going on. But again, I mentioned lithium because it's controversial. That whole Asheville area over there in North Carolina supposedly was one of the largest lithium deposits in America that just happened to have this unprecedented hurricane come 100 miles onshore and make a move at a time when they were in dispute over land rights and weather and all this other stuff. So people know about that. We don't need to go there as much as, on the other hand, you could almost get a map out now and see where's all the lithium deposits in the world. Well, there's a ton of them throughout Africa, and those countries are there. And so there's been a lot more going on for the land about who and what. Well, now that everybody kind of knows what lithium is and how it works and how in demand it is, they're saying, you know what, maybe we need to put the battery plant here as opposed to allowing you to just load your planes up and fly it out.
Right.
That's that gap we were talking about between global economic development and nationalization of it, because now we're going to make it here. Same thing that's being kind of forced with Donald Trump, but Donald Trump basically is going back to history. When we make it here and we're becoming the center of the source, our economy flows. People get employed, people innovate, people are manufacturing. People are coming up with other ideas and things you can do with that product, because you can go right down the road and get all you need to do that. So we you know, in part of it, if you remember, I think it was maybe in the 60s when Toyota first wanted to come to the United States, and all of a sudden people saying, these Japanese cars, they're not too bad. Well, the next thing you know, we got Honda plants, we got Toyota plants. We got all these cars being made or at least assembled in America, and their jobs. And then, so that these are other topics that are relevant. They're coming about what's coming across the border from Mexico. I was sitting in a meeting at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce several years ago, and I was sitting at a table with some guys that were nice, but they were from Mexico.
Right.
And they were like saying, we want you to support us. We want to change the slogan from made in America to made in North America. And I raised back and I listened and I was thinking about it for a minute. I said, now, why would somebody from Mexico want to change that, and say it like that, other than to basically, I won't say usurp, but essentially that's what it was, to say American value is also us too.
Right.
Well, we can't really fully endorse that and say that and stand behind it. But then what do we lose by doing that? So when you hear some of these other, it's, it's almost like, in a sense, it's code language. You can argue and debate it and all that, but the last thing these folks want to hear is about these tariffs, because they understand it's gonna impact. So the first thought about is, oh wow, it's going to drive prices up. Yeah, it's going to drive them up so much we're going to start making it here. We're going to put people back to work and get going, and whether it can be done or not, or how and whatever, we're innovative, and so that's what's going on with Black innovation, Black inventors, and coming up with solutions. We are a prolific culture, and it's not, I'm not just saying it's just a Black thing and all that. It's need. You come up with solutions for survival. We're going to survive. I mean, let's take, for example, the pandemic. You know, we lost, you can debate it, but I think California Berkeley did a story, and I think the number of 41% of our businesses were gone. Black businesses were gone. And they came out with a spin on it and said, yeah, but there's twice as many new businesses started after the pandemic. Well, that isn't so much out the blue and, Houdini pulled a rabbit out the hat. That's those same people that went out of business saying, you know what, I'm not sure which way I'm going. So I'm going to basically incorporate two different businesses. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure which one is going in which way. And then a lot of them just maybe went bankrupt or put that other one out and opened back up with a new and improved thing, instead of, there used to be this whole syndrome about, burn it down, just burn it down. Let me start something new. I'll come up with something else. A lot of them just said, it wasn't going the way I wanted to go. Let me take what I've learned and try a new thing. That's kind of like where we are right now in 2025.
And with 2025, this last question here, Mr. Debow, it's been a real fruitful conversation. It's fascinating, some of the points you're making. How much has the backlash, if we can call it that, against DEI and the overall civil rights agenda impacting Black businesses, Black business development?
It depends. I'm very careful about it, because it depends on how you measure it. And we can't blur everything together in a sense. So for example, there is a very viable discussion and perspective on, as it relates to academics. So I want to separate DEI as it relates to college admissions and that sort of thing, and just talk about in the business sector. The more DEI proliferated, the more the market share for Black business shrank. And that's because of what I call the homogenation of minority. You've got so many different types of minorities, and who's tried to say flavor of the day, but who's in favor today? So, there was the white women, and it's possible that you could get 3 or 4 different licks and a Black business not get one shot out of you being a woman, a white woman, maybe married to somebody, or this whole thing about the LGBTQ thing, and how that kind of became at the forefront of what we were concerned about. Each time those supposed proliferation or numbers of successes, Black business opportunities shrank. And for the most part, we weren't trying to say that you don't have to pick winners and losers based on whether you're male or female, or whether you're Black or white or gay or whatever the case may be. It shouldn't have been on that. It should be on, look at my product, look at what I do, look at how much money it's going to save you, look at the utility of it. Just because you open a business and you happen to be in favor and have some contacts, all of a sudden you come out with a $600 million contract. That's the kind of thing that goes on in terms of who got that, who got that contract, and where did they come from? Did they even did they even play college basketball? They're in the NBA, they're going, and you get out there and you're saying, wait a minute, he can't even hit a free throw or whatever. The performance does not become commensurate. And then we start getting into other issues. And that isn't where we really want to focus. We want to focus on, y'all can keep making those mistakes all you want. In the meantime, we're going to the general open worldwide market with our quality of goods and services and products. And even though the game is the game, eventually it's going to implode or it's going to have to be changed. And I think we're at that crossroads right now. Not to say whether it's the solution, but we're going to probably try a different part of it. Now, the other side of it is we ain't having it. We're not just going to sit back and watch and say nothing, do nothing. And whether it's a matter of a vote or whether it's a matter of who are we going to spend our money with? You really want to get down and get, let's get to the street about it. What did we see? What was that whole thing about Kanye West and Adidas? You want to consume. You want to consume our culture. You want to consume that. What is it? $3.6 trillion of spendable income that we impact the marketplace with. They you get me on a soapbox here. Fool around and find out. Because what happens when we stop buying? Oh my God, you're in trouble. When they had that problem with Kanye, and I use that as an example because it's very tangible, and a lot of average younger folks even understand a little bit more so about it. And I can have my son or somebody come and kind of explain the nuances of it, but I saw what happened, that he had a contract. He wasn't happy with his contract. Dave Chappelle's another one. He had a contract. He wasn't happy with a contract. And they said, okay, well, we got you, and tough, tough, whatever you get, this is how we gonna do it. Okay, all right. So all y'all that are my fans, if you love me and you see this is it's a bad deal, would you agree? Yeah, it's a bad deal. Don't buy it. Don't watch it. Don't do this. They got to come back and make a change. Adidas, in this case, I think got stuck with $1 billion in inventory alone, not to mention the negative impact. And then, so eventually, it might have been 6 months or so, they came back and made a deal enough that so you can have, let's say, a CEO or somebody that says, we're going to fight. We're not going to stand. I mean, another one that's out here in the news right now a little bit is the conflict between P. Diddy and Adagio on his tequila brand and all that happened there. And so these are real world, real time, real reality conflicting of going on to where we're, as a person, as an individual, as a business owner, back feeling that you've got some kind of support or backing, saying, I'm not going for it. I'm not just going to lay down and let you run over me. But when we come together and we work together and you flex that $3.6 trillion leverage on them, that's a hammer. Oh, and it hurts. And so if you're the CEO and you got emotions and things in it, the stockholders and the board of directors say, whoa, wait a minute. We can get along with these people. Let us continue to make the money. If you're not happy about it, whatever, fix it. Let's make that money. Let them keep spending. Don't force them to go do like the Ball family did and create their own shoe.
Yeah.
I'm from the music business. My background. I worked for an artist called Prince. Prince was telling us, he said, you know what? I'm not getting the deal I feel I deserve. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my own record out and I can sell it for $20 and I'm going platinum on 50,000 units, which meaning the same amount of money he would make on 1 million units on the conventional program, that the man is saying, oh, come on in. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of all this for you. We're going to count your money for you. We're going to pay you at the end. And you get through it. And you're only allowed so many audits a year or whatever to keep counting your money. He's saying, you know what? Let me just do it myself. I don't need all that. I can sell for $20 and I can put a record out every week if I want to. And let me just sell for $20 if y'all want like it. And it doesn't have to be hits, but it's just something fun and different and something we doing together. Well, there's other types of things. And then this whole thing has come about now. There's a big area, but NFT, non-fungible tokens, blockchain, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, in this case, we're talking more like crypto, all different types of coins, all different types of activities. It's offsetting the banking industry. No matter how much they tried to say it's not this, don't believe in it, don't go for it, drove the price down. And then somebody like Elon Musk says, I think I'm gonna buy $1 billion today. All of a sudden it shot up to $60,000. And then he said, okay, you're saying how much energy it took to make those coins. I'm gonna sell them. So he took his profit. Well, where is it now? I think it's still up over 100,000 now because the system's moving. It's, so you can believe what they tell you, but watch what they do. Follow the money. So anyway, you got me going on a whole bunch of topics. I'm comfortable with you, so you got me talking about stuff that I shouldn't even be saying out here.
Well, thanks again, Mr. Debow, for your time, and that now concludes our episode, this latest episode of Decision Making.
Well, let's add one thing before you go.
Go ahead.
Send your thoughts, ideas, requests into your company, your email. Get some feedback. Let us know that you agreed or disagreed or whatever. We're at nationalbcc.org, and we got a bunch of resources and different things coming. I want to work with you, in particular, if we can do anything on the public policy side or however, but we certainly are open to anybody and everybody to offer resources and make connections. We're going to do business with each other. God bless. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. We've been talking with Mr. Charles Debow III. He is president and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. Once again, go to nationalbcc.org for more information there or to connect with them. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your executive producer and also host. Also want to send a warm round of gratitude to our partner, the Council of State Governments. More information on them at csg.org. Want to also thank our senior producer, Raven Robinson, who's based in New York. Until then, find this episode and more while you're, of course, subscribing at thebnote.com. So take care and be safe in this new year. We'll see you again.